Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to really get under the skin of the topics that matter, give you those aha moments, and hopefully make you feel genuinely informed pretty fast. Today, let's kick off with an image, something I think probably resonates with a lot of you, especially if you've ever, gone searching for that little hidden gem. Picture this, a small town diner, maybe one you remember from years ago. It's got that faded, maybe slightly weather-beaten sign out front, and it proudly says, maybe in bold, peeling letters, "World's Best Pie." You can almost taste it, can't you? That nostalgic promise, the unchallenged reputation, the whole idea of a place so famous, maybe it doesn't even need to try that hard anymore. For years, that sign, that simple claim, it was enough. Locals swore by it, tourists would detour for miles. But here's the thing about reputations, right? Especially today, when everything moves so fast, they really need to be earned, like constantly. So what happens if, over time, the original baker, the legend who came up with that amazing recipe, decides to retire? Or maybe the new owners, they start cutting corners. Ingredients get cheaper, the care isn't quite there, and that crust, once perfectly flaky, starts tasting, well, let's just say, a bit like cardboard. And yet, that sign, that prestigious faded sign, it's still there, still proclaiming world's best pie, unchallenged, at least by how it looks. So let's unpack this a bit, because that feeling, that analogy of a grand promise kind of slowly eroding, it frames really perfectly a pretty crucial situation that's unfolding right now at some of the most prestigious institutions in the world. We're talking specifically about elite business schools, places like Stanford's Graduate School of Business, the GSB.
Yeah, and this isn't just some, wistful thought about glory days fading, is it?
Yeah.
This is actually a really urgent look at the state of elite business education, a sector most people probably thought was, well, unshakable. Our deep dive today, it's directly sparked by this quite jarring feature that came out recently in Poets and Quants. The title says it all. We're not learning anything. Stanford GSB students sound the alarm over academics. But what makes this really interesting for our discussion and what's driving our analysis today is that our main source is actually an op-ed reacting to that piece. It's by Vishal Kumar, the founder and CEO of TAO.ai. His piece is called When the Moat Dries Up, Business Schools Feeding Advantage. And it's a direct, really powerful commentary on that Poets and Quants article. It offers this much broader kind of systemic view on what these alarm bells actually mean.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really dig in and understand how that traditional moat, that protective barrier of exclusivity, perceived top-tier quality, unparalleled value, how that rote around these tier one academic institutions isn't just getting smaller. It seems to be, well, literally drying up. And maybe even more importantly for you, the listener, we want to explore what this erosion means. What does it mean for the future of learning itself, for the value you get from these places, and really fundamentally for the choices you might make about your own education or career path? Because this isn't just about Stanford's specific issues, right? As big as they are, this seems to signal a huge systemic shift that affects the whole landscape of high-value education. It challenges all those assumptions we've held for so long about where you find real expertise, where you build those transformative networks. So we're going to pull out the most important insights from these sources, try to connect the dots, and give you a clear, concise, and hopefully actionable understanding of this really critical shift that's happening. Okay, so let's dive right into where these alarm bells seem to be ringing the loudest, because the specifics, they're quite revealing. We're talking about inside the actual classrooms at Stanford GSB. Just try to picture it for a second. You've worked incredibly hard. You've maybe made huge sacrifices, taken on significant debt, all to get into a place like Stanford GSB. You arrive, your expectations are sky high. You're dreaming of this genuinely transformative experience, right? The cutting edge insights that are going to reshape your career, your way of thinking, maybe your whole future. That's the promise. That's the big world's best pie sign hanging over the door. You expect to be pushed to learn from the absolute best, to be right there at the forefront of innovation.
But then, according to that Poets and Quants article, which Kumar references heavily in his piece, what many of these incredibly bright, super ambitious students are actually finding is, well, the phrase they use is pretty devastating. Academic indifference.
Wow. Academic indifference. Just think
Yeah.
about that phrase for a moment.
Yeah. It's not just, oh, this class was a bit disappointing. It sounds like a profound sense of betrayal, almost. When the institution you've invested so much faith, time, and money in seems almost uninterested in its core mission education.
So what are the specifics? What are they actually complaining about?
Well, students are reporting this shocking list of grievances. We're talking about courses being described as outdated. Some apparently feel like tech demos from 2010.
Tech demos from 2010? Seriously?
That's the quote. Imagine paying, what, $250,000, maybe more with living costs, for an education that feels like it's over a decade behind.
That's back when the iPhone 4 was new, right?
Exactly. Students are looking for insights on AI, maybe on decentralized finance, on the latest in behavioral economics, and instead, they might be getting a PowerPoint on setting up a basic database from, 12 years ago. It's a jarring disconnect.
Okay, so outdated courses. What else?
It gets worse, actually. Even if there are really relevant, high-demand courses, students apparently face this incredibly frustrating lottery system that determines class access for the crucial ones.
A lottery system? You mean you might not even get into the class you need most?
That seems to be the case. So you identify the exact course that could really advance your specific career goals, something that leverages the school's supposed strengths, and then you might just lose the lottery. You don't get in.
That's like going to the world's best pie diner, being told they're holding a raffle for slices, and even if you win, you might get the cardboard one anyway.
It's a good analogy. And then there's this deeply concerning point about the faculty culture. The perception, at least among some students, is that teaching isn't seen as a core duty or even a privilege, but more like a nuisance, or even worse, a punishment.
A punishment for professors at Stanford.
That's the language used. And if that's the underlying attitude, how can you possibly expect a world-class, engaging educational experience? It inevitably fosters an environment where things like room temp participation policies become the norm.
What does room temp participation mean?
It basically means minimal expectations for engagement. As the source suggests, it effectively trains students not to show up fully, mentally or otherwise. You're not being actively pushed, not challenged to really grapple with the material. You're just kind of expected to be physically present, maybe.
So you're just occupying a seat.
Pretty much. And maybe the most damning point, coming directly from the students themselves, is that they report they're self-teaching useful stuff anyway, because what's being offered formally just isn't hitting the mark.
They're self-teaching while paying that kind of tuition.
Apparently so. Some are even finding themselves grappling with basic Excel tutorials when they expected, high-level strategic insights for leading global companies.
Excel tutorials at Stanford GSB.
Yeah. They're investing in this elite MBA, and at the same time, they might need to hit YouTube or Coursera just to get foundational skills that they feel should be integrated or at least assumed at that level. It points to a serious mismatch in expectations and delivery.
Wow. That's quite a list of problems. And is there data to back this up, or is it mostly anecdotal?
Well, that's what makes it even more compelling and, frankly, quite alarming. The quantitative data, apparently from Stanford's own internal sources, seems to strongly support all this anecdotal evidence, their own internal survey results. They showed student engagement plummeting to a really dismal 2.9 out of 5.
2.9 out of 5 for engagement.
Yes. And if you think about that number, Kumar's op-ed has this really colorful, biting comparison. He says that score is barely above the level where most people return an Amazon product.
Ouch. That really puts it in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. It's a pretty damning indictment. When the educational experience you're paying, again, $250,000 for, falls into that same zone of dissatisfaction as, like, a faulty gadget you just send back without a second thought. It speaks volumes about a fundamental breakdown in delivering value.
It absolutely does. And you mentioned a student quip earlier.
Yes. This one really stuck with me. It seems to encapsulate the whole issue with such sharp clarity. A student apparently said, "Stanford doesn't admit duds. They admit fireworks, then forget to light the fuse."
Wow. Admit fireworks, then forget to light the fuse.
That's powerful. Isn't it? And let's be absolutely clear here. This isn't suggesting the students aren't brilliant. They are. These are some of the brightest, most driven, potentially world-changing people out there. What that quote reveals is this profound, almost tragic disconnect. You got this immense potential, this incredible talent that these institutions work so hard to attract, and then the actual delivery of the educational experience somehow fails to ignite it, fails to properly foster and leverage that potential.
So it points towards an institutional failure, really. A failure to meet these incredibly capable students where they are, push them forward, and ultimately capitalize on the very brilliance the institution itself selected.
Precisely. The world's best pie diner. is still attracting the absolute best customers, the most discerning pie aficionados, if you will. But it's somehow failing to actually deliver the pie that justifies the reputation and the price.
That quote really does hit hard. It's not just a clever line. It feels deeply insightful, almost like, as you said, a cry for help from inside. And okay, while we're zeroing in on Stanford GSB right now, because the details are so stark, you mentioned Kumar emphasizes this isn't just a Stanford problem.
Exactly. That's a critical point he makes, and it really broadens the scope of this whole discussion. He explicitly says, and if that sounds like a Stanford-specific problem, think again.
Huh.
He's not presenting this as some isolated incident, a unique flaw in just one school's operations. It would be tempting maybe to just dismiss it like that.
Right. Oh, that's just Stanford having a moment.
But no, he frames it as something much bigger. He calls it a systemic alarm for all Tier 1 academic institutions. It's like a warning bell tolling for an entire model of elite education.
Okay, so that really brings us to the crucial question for everyone listening. Why should you care about the specific issues happening at one elite business school, even one as famous as Stanford GSB? Because, as Kumar suggests, it signals this fundamental, almost seismic shift in the whole landscape of high-value education. And that shift potentially affects everyone involved in learning, in upskilling, in career advancement.
Absolutely. If the very top institutions, the ones who always held that undisputed world's best pie sign, are starting to show these significant cracks, if they're delivering substantially less than what their reputation promises, well, then it forces us all to question the entire traditional model, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests that those inherent advantages, the very moat that protected these places and justified their huge cost and prestige for decades, might actually be drying up right across the board.
And that fundamentally changes how we should perceive, how we value, and ultimately how we pursue truly valuable learning experiences in this incredibly fast-moving world.
It means those long-held assumptions we've all made about elite education, they might just not hold true anymore. The ground is shifting underfoot.
Okay, so to really get our heads around the depth of this erosion, this drying moat, we first need to properly understand what these elite business schools actually built their formidable value on in the first place. For decades, places like Stanford, GSB, Harvard, Wharton, they constructed their dominance on what Vishal Kumar, in his op-ed, really incisively breaks down into three distinct pillars.
Three pillars. Yeah.
And these pillars, working together, they created that moat we're talking about, that protective barrier, ensuring not just their market leadership, but also their almost unquestioned perceived superiority, their status as the ultimate destination for a certain kind of career trajectory.
So understanding these pillars is key to seeing why the current situation feels so threatening to them.
Exactly. You need to know what the castle walls were made of before you can understand why they might be crumbling. So the first pillar was education the knowledge, gatekeepers. The core promise, the central assumption, was basically, within these ivy-covered walls lay the most relevant, rigorous knowledge one could find.
Right. The idea that the best, most cutting-edge thinking was exclusively there.
Precisely. It wasn't just about getting information. It was framed as proprietary, exclusive access. Access to this cutting-edge curriculum, curated and delivered by the absolute leading minds in fields like finance, strategy, marketing, whatever it might be. The understanding, sometimes implicit, sometimes very explicit, was you just couldn't get this level of knowledge anywhere else. It was exclusive, it was rigorously vetted, it was the gold standard.
So attending meant you were getting the secret sauce, basically. Insights and methods others didn't have access to.
That was the pitch. That perceived uniqueness, that exclusive key to advanced business thinking, was a huge part of justifying the massive investment of time and, of course, money. It was the secret recipe for the world's best pie.
Okay, so exclusive knowledge was pillar one. What's pillar two?
Pillar two was the network, the exclusive tribe. This went way beyond just what you learned in the classroom. These institutions promised something arguably even more lasting, even more valuable. Unparalleled access to a tribe of ambitious peers, influential alumni, and invaluable mentors that would open doors for a lifetime.
The network effect. Everyone talks about the MBA network.
And for good reason. Traditionally, this wasn't just about making some friends or casual contacts. This was about gaining entry into a highly exclusive, incredibly powerful, and influential club. The connections you forged during those intense 2 years on campus, plus the lifelong access you got to this vast, accomplished alumni network, these were seen as a massive competitive advantage.
So finding jobs, co-founders, mentors, investors.
All of the above. Whether it was landing that pivotal next role, Finding the perfect co-founder for your startup idea, getting advice from a crucial mentor who'd already walked the path you were on, or even attracting venture capital down the line. The sheer strength, the exclusivity, and the enduring nature of this network were considered priceless. A true, lifelong ROI that went far beyond graduation day.
It was like the secret society, the VIP lounge that came bundled with your tuition.
That's a great way to put it. That was pillar 2.
Okay, and pillar 3.
Pillar 3 was the experience, the transformative rite of passage. This one is a bit more intangible, maybe, but absolutely crucial to the allure. It transcended just knowledge and networking. It was about the profound personal and professional transformation that was supposed to happen during your time there.
So not just learning things, but actually changing as a person, as a leader.
Exactly. It was pitched as this truly immersive, intense period, typically 2 years to stretch, question, and rewire your whole perspective on business and often on yourself. The allure was this promise of an identity-shaping journey, a deep dive into self-discovery coupled with rigorous intellectual challenge, but crucially, done in a relatively safe space, removed from the day-to-day pressures of your career.
A space to experiment, maybe fail safely, and grow.
Precisely. A space designed for introspection, for taking calculated risks without immediate real-world penalties, for significant personal growth, and for really honing your leadership capabilities. This transformative experience was believed to be something that could only really happen within that unique, privileged, somewhat insulated environment of an elite campus, a crucible for change.
Okay, so those 3 together, the exclusive knowledge, the elite lifelong network, and this intense transformative experience, that's the moat.
That's the moat. Those 3 pillars, working together, mutually reinforcing each other, formed those impenetrable walls in the deep water that protected these institutions for decades.
Right. And these were the reasons people were willing to invest so much time, energy, money, putting careers on hold for 2 years. They were the key ingredients that made that world's best pie sign seem totally credible. But now, here's the central, really unsettling question that this deep dive is grappling with, the one Kumar raises so pointedly in his op-ed. But if Stanford, arguably the best of the best, the place with the most pristine world's best pie sign, is now delivering lectures that feel like tech demos from 2010 and treating course selection like a game of chance.
Yeah.
We must ask, how sturdy is that moat now?
Exactly. If the very core offerings that underpin those pillars are starting to falter, if the ingredients are getting cheaper, maybe, or the recipe feels outdated, even at the very top, what does that tell us about the entire structure of elite education?
It forces us to confront whether that traditional value proposition, the one that seemed unshakable for so long, actually still holds up in our world today, a world that's so different, so digital, so interconnected.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if the water level in that moat is dropping fast.
Which brings us, then, right to the heart of the problem, this new reality, as Kumar calls it. That's not just eroding the moat, but maybe even causing it to evaporate altogether. And the first huge shift, the one that really underpins so much of this, is something you touched on earlier. Knowledge is now ambient. This is such a fundamental change from how things used to be, isn't it? Where knowledge was carefully packaged, controlled, kept behind gates.
It's a revolutionary shift, really. Kumar states it so clearly. Knowledge no longer lives behind paywalls and gates. Think about the implications of that. It's profoundly democratizing. What once required you to be admitted to an exclusive institution, often at enormous expense, is now widely available, often freely, or at least very affordably, to basically anyone with an internet connection.
And he gives that really vivid example, right, about the student in Jakarta.
Yeah, it's a powerful illustration. He says, a curious 21-year-old in Jakarta with a Wi-Fi connection and access to GPT-5 can learn financial modeling, AI ethics, or product market fit faster than many MBA electives allow.
Wow. Faster than an MBA elective. Let that sink in.
Right. The sheer speed, the accessibility, the incredible depth and breadth of high-quality learning material available outside traditional academic walls now. It's just astonishing. Think about how quickly specialized knowledge spreads today. A complex financial model that might have taken weeks to unpack in a traditional course. You can probably find tutorials, use AI tools to help build it, maybe even reverse engineer examples in a matter of hours online.
Or AI ethics, which is changing almost daily.
Exactly. You can follow the debates, read the latest papers, engage in discussions in online forums, all in real time. That exclusivity of knowledge, that core pillar, that proprietary recipe, it's just gone. It's evaporated.
And this leads straight to that really critical cost paradox that the source points out, which for you, the listener, considering your options is absolutely key. If students at Stanford GSB, right at the supposed pinnacle, are already resorting to self-teaching the useful stuff anyway, filling the gaps in their expensive curriculum with readily available outside resources, then the unavoidable question is, why pay $250K or more?
Precisely. The core value proposition around exclusive knowledge, the idea that the best, most cutting-edge insights could only be found inside those ivy walls, that's simply not true anymore.
It's like paying that exorbitant price for the world's best pie, only to realize you can get the exact same, maybe even better ingredients down the street at the local market and bake it yourself for way less money.
A perfect analogy. And the implication for you, the listener, is massive. This ready availability of high-value information fundamentally diminishes the traditional exclusivity of education. It forces a deep reevaluation of what you're actually paying for when you pay that premium.
Is it still the knowledge itself? Or has the value maybe shifted entirely to something else? And maybe even that something else can be found elsewhere, too.
Well, that leads directly to the second major shift that's reshaping this landscape. It's not just knowledge. The network is now portable.
Portable networks. What does that mean exactly?
It means that the traditional network, the one that was so intrinsically linked to being physically present on a specific campus, going to those alumni events and fancy clubs, relying on geographic proximity, that model has decentralized. It's become incredibly fluid, often global, and much more accessible.
So you're talking about online communities and things like that.
Exactly. We're seeing this explosion of new, really dynamic, often purpose-built communities that are effectively replicating, and maybe in some important ways, even enhancing the networking aspect that used to be such a core, almost unique draw of the elite MBA.
What kind of communities are we talking about?
Kumar's op-ed points to examples like Analytics Club, On Deck, these things he calls virtual guilds. These aren't physical places with manicured lawns and old buildings. They're digital spaces, vibrant online hubs built around shared professional interests, very specific skills, or particular career ambitions.
Okay. And how do they compete with, say, the Harvard or Stanford alumni network?
Well, what's fascinating, what really chips away at that traditional network pillar, is their explicit value proposition. They often offer serendipity, mentorship, and connection without physical campuses.
Serendipity without the campus. How does that work?
Through carefully curated online interactions, shared projects, targeted introductions, special interest groups, think about the power of that. You could potentially find highly specialized peers who share your niche interests, get really valuable mentorship from experienced pros who are genuinely invested, uncover unexpected collaborations or job opportunities, all without ever needing to be in the same room, let alone on the same continent. Geography becomes irrelevant.
So these online or community-led models aren't just copying the old network. They're maybe doing it differently, possibly better in some ways.
Arguably, yes. They're certainly democratizing it, making high-quality networking accessible to a much wider, more diverse group of people, often at a tiny fraction of the cost of an MBA, or sometimes even for free. This fundamentally erodes the notion that the most valuable connections can only be forged within the exclusive walls of a traditional elite institution.
So that exclusive tribe isn't so exclusive anymore. It's potentially global and open to anyone proactive enough to seek it out.
Precisely. And then there's the third pillar.
Right, the experience. You said that's becoming replicable too.
That's the argument. The experience is now replicable. That deeply valued, transformative rite of passage, the core of the MBA journey for many, is no longer solely confined to those elite campuses. The unique, immersive, intense personal journey, you can now find ways to replicate key aspects of that through other pathways.
So it's not the only place you can have that kind of intense growth experience anymore.
Exactly. We're seeing this rapid growth of alternative models specifically designed to offer intense, transformative learning experiences. But crucially, often without the huge overhead, the 2-year full-time commitment, and maybe the pomp, as Kumar puts it, of a traditional MBA.
What kind of alternative experiences?
Kumar mentions things like sophisticated online simulations. These can throw incredibly realistic, complex business challenges at you, let you make decisions, see consequences, fail safely, and learn rapidly, all in a virtual setting.
Okay, simulations. What else?
Things like startup labs. Places where aspiring entrepreneurs get thrown into the deep end, actually building real ventures, facing real-world pressures, gaining intensely practical experience that you just can't get from lectures alone.
Hands-on, learn by doing.
Exactly. And also the rise of purpose-driven fellowships. These often offer immersive, project-based learning focused on specific industries, maybe social impact challenges, or cutting-edge tech sectors. They provide deep expertise and build valuable networks within a focused time frame.
And the claim is these alternatives offer that same intensity.
They explicitly aim to offer intensity and transformation without the pomp. They're designed to deliver that rewiring experience, that deep stretching and questioning of your assumptions, but often in a more agile, maybe more targeted, and certainly more affordable and accessible format.
So the rise of all these experiential learning models outside the traditional universities means that the unique identity-shaping journey of an MBA isn't the only game in town anymore. It makes that third pillar look a lot less solid.
Absolutely. It becomes much more porous. And when you put all three of these shifts together, knowledge becoming ambient, networks becoming portable, and experience becoming replicable, it really leads to one pretty stark conclusion. Kumar synthesizes it powerfully. In other words, the moat isn't being breached. It's evaporating.
It's not that someone is attacking the castle. The water protecting it is just disappearing.
Precisely. The fundamental advantages that define these schools, the very reasons for their dominance for so long, are just not exclusive to them anymore. They're becoming available elsewhere, often in more convenient or affordable ways.
And this leads to his concept of the fragile castle.
Yeah. The problem isn't, as that student quote about fireworks highlighted, that Stanford or places like it admit duds. Absolutely not. It's that potentially brilliance is being squandered in outdated structures.
Meaning the institutions themselves, the way they're set up, are holding back the talent they attract.
That's the provocative idea, that the very environments designed to nurture growth, ignite potential, prepare leaders, might ironically be failing to do that effectively because they're clinging to an old model struggling to adapt.
And that leads to that powerful irony he mentions.
Right. The moat was supposed to keep the chaos out. Instead, it's trapping potential inside. It's a really challenging thought.
It really is. And it raises that critical question for you, the listener, and anyone thinking about their own path. Are these institutions, once the undisputed leaders in cultivating talent, now maybe inadvertently stifling it?
Are their structures just too rigid, too slow to change, that they actually prevent the brilliance they attract from flourishing the dynamic, agile way that the modern world and modern learners really demand?
It's a potent irony. It underscores just how urgent and deep this challenge is for them, and it suggests that maybe the world's best pie is stuck being made in a very traditional, maybe inefficient old bakery. Okay, so if the moat is evaporating, if the castle feels fragile because it's built on these maybe outdated foundations, that brings us squarely to the unavoidable critical question, what happens next? Because it seems clear if these elite institutions, the ones with those grand old world's best pie signs, want to stay relevant, if they want their prestigious brands to actually mean something tangible in the age of AI-powered learning and decentralized ecosystems, well, then Kumar argues they must rethink their value propositions urgently.
Yeah, it's not just a suggestion, it feels like an imperative. But interestingly, he doesn't just frame it as a crisis. He actually calls this moment, this really uncomfortable reckoning, a gift.
A gift, how so?
A crisis, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also a chance to lead boldly. It's this unique window, this opportunity for these historically significant institutions to fundamentally redefine their purpose, their methods, how they deliver value in a world where their old advantages are fading fast.
A chance to rewrite the recipe for the 21st century.
Exactly. A chance to innovate from a position of, well, historical strength if they choose to seize it.
So how do they do that? How do they seize this gift? Where does the rethinking need to happen?
Well, connecting it back to the problems highlighted, the first and maybe most critical area is the curriculum. It needs to become dynamic in real time.
Right, moving away from those tech demos from 2010.
Precisely. The current state, as we heard described so vividly by those Stanford students, sounds like one of deeply outdated content. That old model of a static curriculum, maybe updated every few years, it just cannot keep pace with the speed of change today in tech, in global markets, in leadership, in societal expectations.
It's like navigating with a map that's 10 years old when the entire road network has changed.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
So the future state, the necessary shift, demands something radical. Curriculum must be dynamic, integrating real-time developments in tech, leadership, and society.
Not just updated eventually, but dynamic now.
Yes, Kumar stresses the immediacy. Not sometime soon, but now. This isn't about tweaking things around the edges. It requires a profound shift away from that traditional model of static knowledge delivery, where professors might give the same core lectures for years towards a truly agile, responsive learning system.
What would that look like in practice?
It means constantly weaving in the latest breakthroughs, say, in applied AI ethics, the newest models for decentralized, autonomous organizations, the emerging challenges of leading hybrid global workforces, the rapid shift in geopolitical risk. The curriculum needs to feel alive, constantly evolving, not like a collection of dusty textbooks or decades-old case studies.
So designing learning to be as fluid and adaptive as the world students are actually going out into.
That's the goal. That's the challenge.
Okay, so dynamic curriculum is number one. What else needs rethinking?
Alongside that, there's an equally critical need to rethink access. It must be equitable and scaled.
This gets back to that frustrating lottery system for classes.
Exactly. What was described at Stanford, and it's likely not unique to them, is this bureaucratic, arbitrary lottery system for the most popular, often most crucial classes. This isn't just inefficient. It feels fundamentally unfair, especially given the huge investment students are making.
Yeah, imagine being told the key ingredient for the world's best pie is essential, but oops, you lost the lottery to buy it this week, even though you paid a fortune to be in the bakery.
It completely undermines the promise of a comprehensive world-class education, doesn't it?
So what's the alternative? How should access work?
Well, the future state, if these places want to keep their promise, demands a total overhaul. Access must be equitable, with popular, useful classes scaled to meet demand, not throttled.
Meaning, if a class is popular because it's genuinely good and relevant, they need to figure out how to offer it to everyone who needs it.
Yes, actively remove those arbitrary barriers. If a course is clearly hitting a nerve, providing real value, aligning with what students need for their future careers, the institution has to innovate quickly, find ways to make it available.
How? More sections, online options.
It could be many things. Significantly more sections, yes. Exploring hybrid formats, using technology smartly for remote access perhaps, maybe even completely rethinking how certain core content is delivered to larger groups without losing quality or engagement.
So it's not just about fixing a logistical problem, it's also about the ethics of it, making sure everyone gets access to the best stuff they're paying for.
Absolutely. It's about truly fulfilling that promise of a world-class education for everyone they admit, not just the lucky few who navigate the bureaucracy or win the class lottery. It's about ensuring the institution delivers value commensurate with the tuition they've already accepted.
Okay, dynamic curriculum, equitable access. What's the third area?
This one might be the most fundamental, and it goes right to the heart of that academic indifference issue, that feeling that teaching is seen as a punishment. The third area is teaching must be sacred and prioritized.
Making teaching truly valued.
Yes. The current state described, where teaching is perceived by some faculty, or at least felt by students, as a nuisance or a punishment. That kind of institutional culture is just poison to the learning experience. It sends a terrible signal to everyone involved, faculty, students, that the core mission of transferring knowledge, mentoring, developing talent is somehow secondary.
Secondary to research, maybe, or consulting.
Often, yes. Those activities might carry more prestige or tangible rewards within the traditional academic structure. So the future state requires nothing less than a profound cultural and structural shift. Teaching must be sacred, a priority.
What does sacred mean in this context? How do you make it a priority?
It means actively elevating the act of teaching, giving it the same level of prestige, the same importance, the same weight in promotion and reward structures as groundbreaking research or high-profile publications. It means fundamentally re-incentivizing and celebrating excellent teaching, ensuring faculty are supported and rewarded not just for being brilliant researchers in their field, but also for being passionate, effective communicators, empathetic mentors, dedicated educators.
As a consequence if they don't do this.
Kumar is blunt about it. If faculty are disengaged, students won't just suffer, they'll leave, mentally, if not physically. They'll check out, they'll find their real learning somewhere else, maybe in those external ecosystems we talked about.
Which brings up that huge question for these elite schools. How do they actually re-incentivize this? How do they re-skill faculty where needed? How do they make great teaching a core, celebrated part of their identity again, not just a grudging obligation?
That's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? But it seems essential if they want to restore trust and deliver on that core promise. It's about making sure the bakers in the kitchen are genuinely passionate about and rewarded for making that pie truly exceptional.
So if these traditional structures, these castles with their evaporating moats are facing such deep challenges, what does the future of learning actually look like? If it's not just about going to Stanford or Harvard anymore, it seems we need to look beyond the old moat towards these more innovative, maybe more decentralized learning ecosystems you mentioned. And Vishal Kumar's op-ed, it doesn't just point out the problems, right? It also offers a glimpse of an alternative. He talks about TAO.AI's approach.
Yes, he does. He presents it not necessarily as the answer, but as an example, a model of what this future could look like. He talks about their significant investment in two key areas: community-led growth and AI-enhanced development.
Community-led growth and AI-enhanced development. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Well, it seems to be built on this really fundamental transformative belief he articulates. The future of learning won't be confined to campuses.
That's a pretty bold statement. The future isn't on campus.
It is bold and deliberately disruptive, I think. It suggests that the most impactful, the most relevant, the most accessible learning experiences are increasingly going to happen outside the physical boundaries and formal structures of traditional universities.
So where will it happen then?
Kumar suggests it will thrive in ecosystems and networks of curiosity, compassion, and co-creation. It's a very different vision.
Ecosystems, networks of curiosity, compassion, co-creation. That sounds fluid, collaborative.
Exactly. It's a vision of learning that isn't static or centralized in one institution. It's dynamic, inherently collaborative, deeply embedded within active communities. Communities built around shared interests, collective intelligence, maybe a shared purpose, and this genuine desire to build things and grow together.
So learning becomes this ongoing, interconnected process rather than a 2-year program you finish.
That seems to be the idea. It makes the old concept of a single physical castle for all-important learning feel, well, kind of obsolete.
It's like moving the world's best pie recipe out of that one exclusive bakery and into countless open-source collaborative kitchens where people are constantly experimenting and improving it together.
That's a fantastic way to visualize it. And this vision connects directly to this concept they have at TAO.AI, the Worker One, which Kumar calls their North Star.
Worker One. What is a Worker One?
It sounds like it represents a new kind of ideal worker or learner for this future. It's not just about skills, but about adaptability and holistic growth. Kumar says the Worker One needs environments that stretch both heart and mind.
Heart and mind. So not just technical skills.
Right. It implies a much more holistic approach, going beyond just cognitive abilities or rote learning to also foster things like emotional intelligence, adaptability, resilience, critical thinking, maybe a strong sense of purpose. Developing people who aren't just smart, but also well-rounded, empathetic, and connected.
Okay, so these new ecosystems are designed to cultivate this Worker One.
And here's the crucial insight, the point that really brings home the irrelevance of the old moat. Kumar states flatly that those environments are no longer monopolized by elite brands.
Ah, so the best places to grow, to get stretched in heart and mind, aren't only found at Harvard or Stanford anymore.
That's the core argument. The specialized transformative spaces you need for deep learning, for real personal growth, for meaningful professional advancement, they're no longer the exclusive property of a few famous universities.
And this decentralization, it empowers individuals.
Right, massively. It democratizes access to high-quality learning experiences like never before. It allows people to find or maybe even create the specific environments, the communities, the mentors they need to thrive, regardless of whether they can get into or afford those traditional high-cost institutions.
So it's about finding your own path, your own community, your own way to grow, rather than following one prescribed route.
Exactly. It's about personalized, community-driven growth, which feels like a stark contrast to the often rigid, one-size-fits-all approach that some of these elite institutions seem to be struggling to move beyond.
It basically says you don't need that specific famous diner to get the world's best pie experience anymore. You can find the baker or become one yourself in countless new places, maybe even in your own kitchen.
A perfect summary. It's a fundamental shift in where value is created and accessed.
Okay, so this leads us towards the end, and Kumar seems to offer this really interesting, almost dual call to action in his piece. It hits both sides of this whole equation.
Yes, he does. First, there's a very direct challenge aimed squarely at the institutions themselves. He specifically addresses Dean Sarah Soul and the leadership team at Stanford GSB. But it reads like a message for all elite institutions.
What does he say to them?
He says, this moment is a gift. A crisis, yes, but also a chance to lead boldly. You've inherited a prestigious sign. Now make sure the pie is worth the hype.
Wow. Direct. Make sure the pie's worth the hype.
It's an urgent plea, isn't it? It's a direct challenge. Transform from within. Honor your incredible legacy, not by just polishing the old sign, but by innovating fiercely, proactively for the future that's already here.
It's an invitation to fundamentally rewrite that recipe and reignite the passion for actually baking the best pie, not just trading on the old reputation.
Precisely. That's the call to the institutions.
But then there's a second call to action, one that's broader.
Yes, and this one is maybe even more empowering because it's directed at everyone else. Every student, every faculty member, every aspiring worker one, which really means you, the listener, too.
What's the message for us?
He says, don't wait for the castle to change. Build your own bridges. Find your own ecosystems. Light your own fuse.
Light your own fuse, echoing that student's comment earlier.
Exactly. It's a profoundly empowering message for individual agency. It's saying, take control of your own learning journey. Recognize that the most valuable education, the most transformative growth, might no longer be found just by following that traditional, well-worn path to the gates of a famous institution.
So instead, be proactive. Create your own path.
Yes. Actively create, engage with, leverage these new dynamic learning environments. Build your own bridges to the knowledge and networks you need. Find or build the ecosystems where you can thrive. It's about self-directed growth in an era where the old gatekeepers are losing their grip.
Where the best learning isn't defined by a prestigious location, but by your own intention and action.
Beautifully put. It's about deciding. Do you just want to consume the world's best pie from the old famous place? Or do you want to be part of actively baking it, improving it, maybe even inventing new kinds of pies wherever you happen to be? Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. To recap our deep dive into this idea of the drawing moat. The core argument, really brought into focus by those alarm bells ringing at Stanford GSB and analyzed more broadly by Vishal Kumar, seems unequivocally clear. Those traditional advantages that basically defined elite business schools for decades, their exclusive grip on education, their unparalleled networks, their unique promise of a transformative experience, all of that is being seriously eroded, maybe even evaporating.
Right. We're seeing a world where knowledge is readily accessible everywhere, undermining that exclusivity, where networks are portable, built in decentralized communities, often online, and where transformative experiences are becoming replicable through alternative, often more agile and affordable pathways. The water in that moat is definitely receding.
And crucially, as Kumar really hammers home, this isn't just Stanford's problem. It's not some isolated issue. It's presented as a systemic challenge, a huge wake-up call for all Tier 1 academic institutions.
Yeah, it's a powerful sign that the fundamental value proposition for elite education, that whole recipe for the world's best pie, needs an urgent, maybe radical, probably quite painful rethink. That old sign outside the diner, it's just not carrying the same weight anymore.
So the big question remains. What does all this mean for you as a learner navigating this rapidly changing landscape?
Well, it seems the power dynamic is shifting dramatically, doesn't it? It's maybe less about chasing the most prestigious brand name on the sign, the most exclusive Ivy League address.
Exactly. The future of learning, as Kumar concludes so powerfully, seems to be becoming less about where you go physically, and far more about what you actively grow, the skills you build, the insights you connect, the adaptability you cultivate.
And maybe just as important, who you grow with. The communities, the networks, the ecosystems you choose to actively participate in and contribute to.
Absolutely. And if that future, this emerging landscape of learning, makes the old moat that traditional barrier of exclusivity and assumes superiority if it makes that moat increasingly irrelevant.
Then, as the source boldly concludes, so be it.
Yeah, it's not presented as a tragedy. It feels more like an invitation. An invitation for you, the listener, to really think about how you can actively participate, how you can build your own learning ecosystems, find your tribe, and, most importantly,
light your own fuse, rather than just waiting passively for those old, perhaps outdated structures to maybe eventually change.
it's time, perhaps, to think about building your own bakery.